Court in Rhode Island.
That's right.
Right,
Rhode
so-
Island, because he's a Rhode Islander.
Exactly.
Right, and so that's federal court. As Jackie said, federal court system and the subject matter jurisdiction, federal issues, and if you have two parties to a suit that are from different states, you can bring something if it's a large enough case based on diversity. Then we started talking about the state system. In Rhode Island, we have a Supreme Court. In Rhode Island, our Supreme Court is the final court like it is in the United States. In New York, interestingly enough, their Supreme Court is the trial level court, just what they name them. We have in Rhode Island, initially the Superior Court was the general court for trials, and it has both equitable jurisdiction and legal jurisdiction, meaning that they can hear claims that are for money or claims that are to stop somebody from doing something for an injunction. And Jackie started talking about our family court. Initially, before a family court was established in Rhode Island, which was in the early 60s, those cases were heard in the Superior Court.
Interesting.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about that. Do you remember that we had the case in Rhode Island about the couple married in Massachusetts of the same sex that wanted to get divorced in Rhode Island?
Yes.
The issue the Supreme Court decided in that was that when Rhode Island created the family court in the early 60s, they defined marriage as between a man and a woman, husband and a wife. And therefore, the court, which is a court of limited jurisdiction because it was established by the legislature, didn't have jurisdiction. So the next step for those folks, if they wanted to pursue it farther, was to go to the Superior Court and file for divorce there, which had jurisdiction over divorces before the family court was created.
But the Rhode Island Supreme Court decided that they were not going to, they didn't have jurisdiction, they're not going to hear the case.
Yeah, I don't think the second case ever got to the Supreme.
What happened, since I do a lot of family law, what happened in that second case is the clients or the parties to the case, I think, got tired of being thrown around the court system. So one of the litigants in the case actually moved back to Massachusetts, where they were married, stayed there for the sufficient amount of time to file a divorce, which is 1 year, and she ultimately filed her divorce in the state of Massachusetts. Not say that I agree with that decision in Rhode Island. That can be an entirely different show.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
Rhode Island should have heard the case.
It wasn't an issue of whether gay marriage is allowable in Rhode Island. It's whether or not you recognize a legitimate divorce from another state. And a narrow view was taken, I think, of the jurisdiction of family court in that Supreme Court decision.
When we think about other topics, we've talked about probate. Those are set up as state issues,
Well,
limited jurisdiction.
the courts are in Rhode Island in each city and town. The law that would apply to probate is state law. So each municipality has a judge who has to interpret what the state law is. But the decisions that would be made in that court would then be appealed for a new trial in Superior Court and then to the Supreme Court. So any case law that comes out of probate courts in Rhode Island would be a state law.
How about espionage, terrorism? It starts in a state, but it really is considered what? A federal
It probably.
issue?
A lot of times they come up with a federal, they use a federal statute in charging someone, but yeah, I would think it would.
An interesting question was asked once of a Supreme Court justice, I think it was, that I was privy to the conversation of, and it was, why are some political scandal criminal cases brought in federal court and why are some brought in state court? And the answer is simply, it depends which agency does the initial investigation. If it's the FBI, it's going to get brought to federal U.S. District Court. If it's the Attorney General's office or the state police, it's going to end up in state court.
And they would be charging them with a crime under the federal statute.
Right.
They would charge them with a federal statute
Yeah,
crime.
if it's
and then
the
in
F-
state court, it would
right.
be, they would be charged with a
State violation. If it's the
violation of
FBI,
state.
they're going to charge you with a federal
Yeah.
crime. And always, I almost always see at the end of one of those things, 3 or 4 more charges for mail fraud. I
Yeah.
think that always gets
Yeah,
tacked
yeah.
on.
Have to have one that we can anchor. Municipal court, where does that fall?
They're set up in cities and towns. Not every city and town has a municipal court. It has to be created by statute via the General Assembly. So East Greenwich has created a municipal court. David's been there for a number of years, and Bristol has created municipal court. I've been there for a number of years. Our jurisdiction, or subject matter jurisdiction, is limited to municipal violations like housing, having junk in someone's yard. That's a municipal ordinance. It's a violation. Traffic tickets, so speeding, 1 to 10 over, anything under 10 miles per hour, that will be under our jurisdiction. So we'll hear speeding tickets, parking tickets, unlicensed dogs, disorderly conduct. That's where we are limited
Right.
with our jurisdiction.
The municipal courts have what you'd call concurrent jurisdiction for the moving violations with the Rhode Island Traffic Tribunal. So when a police officer in East Greenwich writes a ticket and it's for less than 10 miles over the speed limit, they send it to the municipal court. They could send it to the traffic tribunal, but since we have a municipal court, that's where they would send it. And the reason municipal courts were set up is to give residents of the town an opportunity to go to court in their own town rather than being inconvenienced for going to Wakefield, which is where they would have gone if
East
there wasn't a
Greenwich.
municipal court in East Greenwich.
Now, each of you serves as a municipal court judge. How do you do that and still have your own caseload? Is it one day a week, a night, a morning?
The way it's set up in Bristol, it's 2 times a month, the second and fourth Tuesday. So the second Tuesday, we have it in the morning, typically from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then the fourth Tuesday, we have it at night, starts at 6 o'clock to whatever time it's finished. So we are permitted to have a law practice, but we're not permitted to present a case in our own court. So
Right.
Certainly.
We're
No conflict.
part-time judges,
Yes.
full-time lawyers. The part-time judge thing makes us fall under the judicial canons of ethics that any other judge in Rhode Island would fall under. But East Greenwich is the same. It's twice a month, mostly at night, some morning sessions. And we set that up to be convenient for the people who come to see us, because some people prefer coming at night and others prefer coming during the day. So when the police officer writes the ticket, if it's a moving violation, for instance, he's going to send them to the next session. But when they come in, if they want to fight it or push it farther down the road, we'll ask them, do you want to come back morning or night, and make sure we try to be as accommodating as we can. But it's part-time.
And how were you appointed? Who appointed you?
I was appointed by the town council, so you have to have a majority of vote by the town council, so I serve at their pleasure. Every 2 years they're re-elected, every 2 years they have to reappoint or appoint someone new.
East Greenwich is at the
Same.
pleasure of the town council.
Every year?
It's, if they remember I'm there, they can try to put it up. What happens when I applied is they advertised the position, and people applied, including the then current municipal court judge. But it's at the pleasure of. So until they ask to change it, I stay.
Okay. When someone comes before you, you're talking about city ordinances, are they likely to come in with a lawyer? Do they need a lawyer?
Very few people do come in with a lawyer. I do have a case once in a while where they want to go to trial, and they might come in on a traffic violation with an attorney. I would say maybe about 5% of the cases do I have someone with a lawyer. Do they need to have a lawyer? It's not that complicated to ask the court to dismiss a ticket if you have a good driving record. If it is somewhat complicated and they have to present evidence and they're not comfortable with it, then yeah, recommend bring a lawyer. But
Yeah, same thing. Most people come in without an attorney to the East Greenwich Municipal Court. I had some complicated cases, though, where attorneys did enter their appearance. Those are more the city or town violations, the town ordinance. An interesting one was a person who was charged with keeping a junkyard, so to speak, in an area that wasn't zoned for that. And the lawyer brought in evidence showing that their use of the property predated the zoning ordinance, and that they've always had things going in and out of the property that might constitute junk otherwise. So I referred it to the town solicitor to review to determine whether or not they want to pursue it or not. But it's complicated, that type of situation. Another one was a woman whose property had a 3/4 built house on it, and 1/4 totally open and dangerous. And the town wanted her either to take a permit out to finish it or knock it down. And so that was complicated, and she came in with an attorney and eventually